All right, we're here for a Vyver Minute. What's a Vyver Minute? A few tips and tricks, a few negotiation tactics that I've learned along the way that I thought I'd share. So let's get into it. So one of the key themes that I see people often doing is when it comes to following up with people. Very simple rule, you make a new connection or you're introduced through someone in your network, or even if it's a cold outreach where you believe there might be value and alignment. I call this approach the alternative advance close. What is it? It's a very simple and easy solution in order to enable someone to provide a time for a meeting. And typically the way it goes is you're reaching out to somebody, you send out an email, and at the end, if you're looking to connect with them, you provide two different times. Why do you do this? It puts the mind psychologically in a decision mode, whether you want to meet at 1 p.m. on Wednesday or 2 p.m. on Friday, as opposed to trying to say, let me know when you have availability. So putting the mind in a decision mode makes it easier for the receiver to then determine what actually works for them based on their calendar. Typically, one of those two times almost becomes an availability, but if not, you'll always get a suggestion for an alternative time. So that's a quick tip for what I call the alternative advance close. Some people may agree, some may disagree. I've used this throughout my career, and I found it to be quite helpful. Another pro tip is around negotiation. So this could apply to sales or it could apply to partnerships. You might have some prescribed rates that have already been put together as part of a price table that's in the partnership, but now you're actually negotiating the first deal. Or it could be, one of several deals that's come along your way where the client is looking for specific pricing. And this might be different than what's been put in there because they're asking for certain discounts. So it's always important to come prepared to these types of conversations, whether, again, it's sales or partnerships. I call it coming up with the first offer, which would be your initial price, and always coming prepared with the second offer, which is if your first offer is rejected or if the client's looking for deeper negotiation or deeper discounts. And the third is your final. If you don't come prepared knowing what your first offer, your second offer, and your final offer is, that's where deals tend to fall apart. Because having this ability to forecast that the client will typically ask for discounts, it's better to know before going in what you'd want to be landing at. And it makes it super easy if you work with your leadership, CRO, or whoever it may need to be in order to get the approvals for all three of these levels. Because otherwise there's a lot of going back and forth, there's a lot of momentum that requires the organization to continuously approve new price models. And so using the three-step rule of first offer, second offer, and final offer is typically a great way to begin or get into negotiation around price. So when it comes to partnerships, one of the key things is you develop an integration, it comes to the commercials, and let's say you're a technology provider. You're a SaaS solution, you're looking to integrate with a CRM, a larger platform play, and it's now coming down to how you want to collaborate on the partnership. Most established companies, the large platform players, will typically put you into certain buckets. This could be as simple as you get a marketplace listing, and there's no referral even or anything to the end partner who you're partnering with. However, in the cases where you do have that optionality, it's critical to always have a resell partnership. Why? Referral partnerships do not really incentivize the sales reps of the target company that you're integrated into. What do I mean by this? Let's talk about an example. Let's say you've built in technology application that can automatically follow up with leads, and you integrate with Salesforce. So in this example, you ideally want to be able to resell and provide commission to the Salesforce reps for recommending or for promoting your technology in the event of a sale so that they're commissioned on it. Quota retirement is what all salespeople think about. And without having that resell agreement in place, the integration and the success of that can be quite tricky. Not saying it fails, but it can be very tricky. So it's always important when you're going into these negotiations or you're trying to build a partnership, really understand the commercial structure. How will you go to market? And my number one pro tip is always be on the resell side. And if you can't get that, then at least there should be some spiff or some incentives for the sales teams that are selling on your behalf to be able to be incentivized, to be able to close those deals and bring you in along the ride with them. So this is a slightly lengthier post talking about partnership development. So you're off to the races, you've developed an integration, the integration and the development and the product management team have worked, nights and weekends and been able to actually launch an integration between your existing tech company and a target company that probably has a larger number of users. But now you want to be able to do the go-to-market for it. There's 6 key things that are essential to take an integrated product, a set of integrated products, to then being able to drive a true go-to-market around it. And I talk about this very clearly, that this should be around number 1, sales enablement. Do the salespeople of the target company you're integrated with know what your product does? Have they been given a sales kit? Do they know generally what to look for? Do they know what are some of those use cases they need to be focused on? That is around the pure sales enablement. The second element, who support the sales team, is your solution enablement. So that's a much more technical understanding and training, where you're trying to train this pre-sales or solution engineering teams, or even professional services implementation teams of the target company that you've integrated into, and making sure that they also have a center of excellence. That's the third environment. Do they have a demo environment set up? Have you been able to give them access? Have you identified the individuals that are now truly certified and able to explain this to clients from a technical standpoint? That's the third one. The fourth one is marketing. When it comes to marketing, you can do joint blog posts, you can do LinkedIn live events, being able to do webinars, understanding their event schedule and being part of it. That's the fourth item that's part of the whole partner development journey. And the fifth item would be leadership alignment. You need maybe quarterly or twice a year having executives on both sides sponsoring the partnership, talking about ways in which you can propel this relationship further and partnership further is another key element of that. And last but not least is the account planning sessions. Account planning sessions are essentially, as you develop those relationships with the sales teams, having your sales and their sales teams jointly collaborate and figure out on 1 to 2 or 3 or maybe a larger list of accounts that you can collectively go after, where there might be some joint incentives to collaborate, is critical for partnership success. So I believe that just by the integration is where the partnership really starts, and to do these go-to-market motions, that's what you really need to be successful. Another pro tip is around the first win. Too often, we look to integrate with or develop partnerships with companies that have massive scale. We get lost in the view of the forest versus looking at the single tree. And what I mean by here is really focus on the first win. This is probably a play I think I take from Peter Thiel, and give credit to him in the book 0 to 1, where he talks about finding and identifying that one customer or subset of customers. So when it comes to sales or when it comes to partnerships, you've developed a brand new partnership, focus on that first win that you're going to get. Who is that customer going to be? What incentives are you going to drive in order to get that first customer? That will serve as the catalyst or the beachhead for the partnership. And it's important that it's a great logo. It's significant enough that it gets the attention of the target company that you've integrated into, and to grab the attention of the rest of the sales team. So that's an important part. Focus on the first win. So avoiding some of the pitfalls when it comes to partner pricing. So quite often when we integrate with other third-party solutions, and again, this is coming from the standpoint where you're looking to develop your go-to-market and sales efficacy by partnering with larger companies that have a bigger platform play, and selling your product alongside theirs gives them a competitive edge, is around pricing. So quite often I've been in situations where the price of the target client's environment and our technology was in fact a lot higher than the client's MSRP. So typically when you're looking to price it, you have to take into account the partnership referral or reseller fee, which is in the typical standard rule is 70-30. 70% is kept to the ISV who's integrating into the platform player. 30% goes to the platform player. But at the same time, you have to try and understand the unit economics of what it takes to make a large deal for a platform provider and what portion of that would be your component. Having it at 50-50 is probably a non-starter because you're really inflating the average sales price of the deal when combining the two technologies. Unless, of course, there are always those edge cases where it might be different and it might require that. But typically, you have to keep that in mind as you're looking to, even at the very beginning, integrate, is how do these companies commercially go to market? It's an important point to think about. So too often we focus on successes, but sometimes failure is where we learn. I want to talk quickly about a partnership that I did many years ago with an MVNO. Too often we focus on successes, but sometimes failure is where we learn. One of the stories that I recall from my past history is where I was negotiating a deal with an MVNO. Just for the benefit of the users who don't know what an MVNO is, think of Boost Mobile, or think of companies that sit on top of large telecom networks like AT&T, T-Mobile, and they often custom plans for subscribers around the US, or it could be international as well. So we were approached by this MVNO who were interested in taking our enterprise-grade communications software and selling this and positioning it to their clients. On both sides, there was a tremendous amount of excitement. They had over several million subscribers. We felt a slew of them would be enterprise-grade type customers or even SMB customers that would be willing to procure this type of technology. So after about a year of negotiation on understanding the commercials, understanding how we would launch this in different phases, we then integrated a workflow that would then work for that target customer to offer this new enterprise communication software. What ended up happening is we got a total of 0 sales upon launch. Even after tracking this for several months, that number did not change. So what went wrong? Basically, we completely mistargeted the demographic and the ideal customer profile. So while the MVNO had several subscribers, these were all small individual subscribers that would not be true clients of a communications software for even their small teams. So even though we had assumptions that many of them could be running accounting firms, could be running a barbershop, they could be running a small services, and they might need for 4, 5, 6 of their employees a small communication suite that would enable them to have higher productivity, message their customers, get phone numbers, etc. It was just the wrong target market. So, a common saying is putting a square peg in a round hole. I think that was one of the lessons learned. And if we had done and realized very early on, or run a test pilot around this with a small subset of clients, that might have been a better way to avoid a very lengthy negotiation, a lot of legal time involved, and basically prevent a very long integration cycles and then realizing that it was ultimately not a great fit. Yep, you can say we took a chance, which, as I mentioned in many other videos, 70% of partnerships do fail. But in this case, you want to avoid and minimize those failures. And this could have been one that had the excitement and the the tenacity with which we wanted to do a deal not been there, and we'd actually taken a step back and done our homework a little more clearly and run this in a more smaller set of customers to actually try and see if this is something that could be piloted as an early phase introduction into the market, we would have learned a lot more. And perhaps it could have still been successful had we known the right way to market or communicate to this subscriber base.